Hi everyone. Last week we looked at Nehemiah chapter 3 and we saw that everybody worked together and they were able to start building back up the wall of Jerusalem. But today we're on chapter 4 and 5 and things aren't quite as good as they were in chapter 3. In chapter 3 it was lovely to see everyone working together as a community, all to worship God by building the wall. But today, well, it starts with a couple of guys, Sanballat and Tobiah, who see the Jews starting to build the wall and they start making fun of them. They're angry that God's people are starting to build this wall, and they're angry and they start teasing them about it. But Nehemiah and the folks building the wall don't get discouraged right away. They just ask God to help them. They pray and then they keep going. And actually they do really well, and they get half the wall built. It's up to about half the height it should be. But it's really, really annoying Sanballat and Tobiah and the other guys that are with them. They're not God's people, they're other people watching, and they get really angry and they start to threaten the God's people and say that they're going to attack them. Now God's people start getting a bit scared, and they're also quite tired. They've been working really, really hard to get the walls as far up as they've got them. And they're just tired. And they're still seeing all the rubble lying about. And they say, oh, there's just too much rubble to get through. And it's too messy. We're never going to get this done. It was a daft idea to start. But Nehemiah encourages them. And he says, let's ask God to help us again. And let's not be scared of the people round about us, but let's get ourselves armed. Let's get guards to watch while the walls are being built. And so some people started to guard the walls while the others built. They prayed and they asked God to remind them that they were doing it for him and that we wanted to worship him because he's amazing. And that helped them to get back to work. Knowing that someone was looking out for them, the guards were looking out for them, and knowing that they were doing it for God, it was worth doing even when they were tired and it felt really hard. But you know, that wasn't the end of it, and Sanballat and his pals started again, and this time they said they were really going to attack because they could see how well the walls were going. So actually this time they had to build, and at the same time as building they carried swords to defend themselves. And they had guards watching over them. And Nehemiah suggested that they even had a trumpet. Because the walls were getting big and they were getting long, if someone was going to attack them, it might take a wee while for the news to get along the wall that something was happening. So they had trumpets so that they could sound them. And if you heard it, you knew there was going to be an attack and you could go and help. So they were still looking out for each other. This time they were just doing it by guarding the walls together and looking out for each other together. But you know, that didn't last that long. Nehemiah discovered in chapter 5 that actually in the family groups, remember we talked about that last week, they were in family groups working hard together, but in their family groups some things were going on that were really disappointing. Some family members were really, really struggling to feed all their family, and they were struggling to have enough money. And other members of the same family were the ones taking the money from them and loaning them money but making them pay loads back. And it wasn't good at all. They weren't sharing. And that made Nehemiah cross. And he knew he had to say something, so he spoke up. He gathered everybody together and he said, this isn't good. This is not how we should be. We should be looking out for each other. We should be caring for each other. We should be making sure we're all got enough food to go round. And when he said all this, it made the people who'd been doing the wrong thing think again. And they said, look, you're right, we're going to stop doing that and we're going to start looking out for each other properly again, or we'll never get this wall built. But more than that, we want to honour God, so we want to look after each other. So things changed, and at the end of chapter 5 we realise one of the reasons why. Because Nehemiah was leading by example. Nehemiah told them they shouldn't be living the way they were. They should be looking out for each other. And that's what he was doing. He was looking out for others. He wasn't taking money from them. He was feeding lots of people that weren't even in his family. So he was doing the right thing, and he was showing them how to do the right thing. And at the end of chapter 5, things are going well again with the wall. They're all looking out for each other, and things are really looking up again. And we'll find out next week what happens next. Now, I wondered today if there might be a couple of questions or a couple of things you could chat about together as a family. And the first thing is, I thought, I wonder if we can think in any times where we've been picked on or teased for something that we're doing, something that we know is right to do, but we're getting picked on for it. And I wonder if we could just chat about that with our families and tell them how we feel, how it felt at the time, what we did about it, and then maybe we could talk to God about it together, and think on what you could do. Because Nehemiah's people, when they were building the wall, God's people, what they did was ask God for their help, for his help to keep going when that was happening to them. Another thing I thought you could maybe ask, especially the grown-ups in the family, has there ever been a time where, like Nehemiah, they knew stuff was going on that wasn't good, and they had to stand up for what was right, and they had to speak out and say, look, what you're doing is not right. You shouldn't be doing this. I wonder if anyone's ever been in that situation, and I wonder if they could tell you about that, and you could have a chat about that and how it feels to stand up for what's right, even when nobody else is. And the third thing I thought you could talk about is something hard. This is one we all have something to talk about. Have you ever felt the way they felt in chapter 4, where they were just tired and they thought of doing something tricky, that all that rubble was still there, was so much still going on, it was so tiring, they just didn't want to keep going. They thought it's too much. I wonder if you've ever been in that situation. You maybe feel like that just now. I wonder if you could chat with your family about that and think about asking God to remind you that everything that you can do in worship to him. You can honour him by doing your very best, even when it feels really hard. He can help you, God can help you to do your best, and that worships him and honours him. Now, I've got a couple of things you might want to try today as well. The first thing I thought might be quite good fun for a Sunday afternoon is a wee game of Jenga. So if you've got Jenga in the house, remember what that is. You build it all up on a tower, all the bricks, and then you see if you can carefully take it in turns, take a brick out, and see if you can take bricks out of the wall without it all falling down, tumbling down into a big pile of rubble again. Do you know what? See if you don't have Jenga in the house, wonder if you could be really imaginative and make your own. You could make your own giant Jenga using cardboard boxes. Build up a big cardboard wall, and then see if you can pull out a couple of boxes. See how many you could pull out actually before it all falls down. Another thing I thought you might like to do is think about sharing. And Nehemiah had to talk to them about sharing what they had with each other. Maybe you could make a cake or cakes this afternoon, and then you could think about sharing them with your family, maybe even sharing them with some other people, but you'd really need to make sure you'd washed your hands and kept everything clean for that. And then the third thing I thought you could do, I've sent a little email with a blank brick wall sheet. Now you might want to make your own brick wall, just picture for the wall, just a blank one, lots and lots of bricks, big wall. You could stick it on your fridge maybe, and then each day, maybe tea time or something, as a family, you could talk about who you're going to pray for that day. You might still have your prayer jar from last week with church people's names in, but it might be someone in your family, one of your friends you know is having a hard time. Maybe they're getting teased at school, things are not going well for them. And you could decide to pray for them that day and then write their name in one of the bricks. And then on the fridge, you'll build up a brick wall with different people's names written in each brick, and that'll be all the people that you've prayed for over the last few days. And it will remind you that you can pray for each other and look out for each other and sort of have each other's back by asking God to look after each other in prayer. Well, I hope you have a good afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and hopefully I'll see you soon, but not in person because we can't visit.